Welcome back to Rudy's 1/6 World for episode 12 of our new figure showcase, where I'll be doing a quick review / posing session with the newest addition to my collection. And today's new addition is from EXO-6's ongoing Star Trek Voyager line, and it is the recently released Lieutenant Commander Tuvok. Now, I have been pretty excited about EXO-6 for a while now, and Star Trek Voyager was a personal favorite of mine. So to have an opportunity to get figures based on the show and assemble the crew was a great chance for me, and one that I couldn't pass up, and one that I don't think we'll get again. But then I got Captain Janeway, and while the uniform and the accessories were really impressive, I was extremely disappointed with the sculpt, and I have to admit, it was such a big disappointment that I actually questioned whether or not I would buy anything else from EXO-6. But I took a chance and pre-ordered a few figures, including Captain Benjamin Sisko, 7 of 9, Locutus, and Chakotay. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about what we would be ultimately getting. Fast forward to today, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty happy with this release. Is it perfect? No, but I do think it's a substantial improvement over Janeway. So let's take a look at what we're getting here, and it's a pretty standard release from EXO-6 with the transporter pad base and similar accessories. So looking closer, he includes 7 additional hands, a few specific gripping hands to pick up the accessories and the weapons, as well as some very specific Vulcan gesture hands, giving us the Vulcan greeting, as well as either the nerve pinch or the hand to create the mind meld. They all look pretty decent with some nice texturing showing veins and wrinkles, so pretty nice variety here. As far as other accessories, he comes with the tricorder, which has some nice sticker decals on it and some great paint applications on the sensor boards. And the nice part is this opens up using magnets, and it affixes onto the service uniform on a holster that also attaches via magnets, so a really nice feature. He also includes the standard hand phaser, which similarly attaches to a holster that connects to the uniform via magnets. Phaser looks nice with some good silver paint apps and nice color apps on the grips and trigger buttons. The other accessory included is a tablet, which again includes some nice decal stickers to create the screen image, showing a Borg cube on it, so very Voyager specific. So overall, another simple but nice accessory. The highlight for me though here is the phaser rifle. This is my favorite in the series, and I think they looked good in First Contact as well. Design is very sleek and just feels a little more streamlined as opposed to the other phaser rifles we've gotten. It's a pretty simple design with silver paint apps, although I do wish it had a few more details. For example, there's no trigger, and the scope is missing some of those optic details that we typically see with some other figures. But that's just being nitpicky. Overall, the accessories are pretty top notch. But that always goes without saying when it comes to EXO-6. So let's move on to the sculpt here. And like I said before, this is a huge improvement over Janeway. I actually think he looks like Tuvok. Is it perfect? Not 100%, but it's pretty close. I think there is some nice detailing that is unfortunately hidden by the paintwork. It's still noticeable, just a little hard to see. I heard someone in the community discuss high definition versus standard, and I'm just going to borrow that for a second because I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. Sculpt is really good, but it's betrayed a little bit by the paintwork. Having said that, again, it is a marked improvement over Janeway, and I think the eyes are also a huge improvement, and that was something I disliked with Captain Janeway because the paintwork on the eyes looked very doll-like. Here they're looking much more lifelike, so again, a big improvement. Although, looking closer, it might just be me, but his eyes might be a little uneven. He almost looks a little cross-eyed, to be honest. It's subtle, and maybe it's not a huge deal breaker, but up close, it's something that now I'm noticing it's pretty noticeable, actually, up close. Other than that, though, I think everything looks great, right? His ears look great with the distinctive Vulcan feature, as do his eyebrows, although Tuvok always did have that slightly raised eyebrow look, which might have been nice to get here. Hair looks okay, it just brings back the high definition argument. I think the sculpt overall is good, but with some better paint apps, it would be really outstanding. But even though there is room for improvement, again, standing him next to Janeway, it's clear that EXO-6 is improving, and I think it's a pretty significant improvement. As far as the uniform, the command pips are nicely painted on his collar, as is the Starfleet insignia comm badge. The rest of the uniform is simple, but really nicely done and tailored. And EXO-6 basically bends over backwards to make sure they get the division colors screen accurate. Still never been sure why security has the same color as engineering, but that's just a random thought that popped into my head. But going back to the uniform, it's an A+ effort. It looks good, it's very screen accurate, and has some nice texturing in the material selection. And that's pretty much it. The standard Voyager uniforms were really straightforward and simple. I think the TNG ones from the later seasons might be a little more complex, and obviously the ones from the later seasons of DS9 and the movies with the gray were much more military in nature and were my personal favorites. But still, it's easy to think simple means lazy, and maybe sometimes it does, but EXO-6 did a great job of still making sure the tailoring on these was phenomenal, so I think it's a huge selling point. So overall thoughts as we look at Tuvok are, first of all, he's a huge step up, and hopefully he's an indication of what's to come. I think the work on the head sculpt is great and even looks better than he did in the prototype, which again gives me hope for the next figures in the line. I also really like the way he looks in the uniform, and even to a degree, I feel like he makes the Janeway look better. On the one other thing I do want to bring up, especially since I've been really digging into other new figures, the So-So Kingpin looked great, but the arms were really difficult to move, super stiff, and I found that with some of the Hot Toys figures as well. This figure reminds me a lot of the Damn Toys Gangsters Kingdom ones. The body has a really wide range of motion, and the uniform is not restrictive at all. For example, you can bend his arm at the elbow almost complete to 180 degrees, which lets you achieve some really nice poses. A lot was riding on this release for me after the Janeway. If this figure didn't pan out, I was going to pretty much drop EXO-6, and at least for me personally, he turned out to be a really solid effort, so I think I'm in it for the rest of the Voyager line. As I mentioned previously, I do have Chakotay and Seven on pre-order, so that basically leaves B'Elanna, Tom, Harry, and Neelix to complete the line, and I do have to try to pick up the Doctor to complete the crew. Like I've said before, EXO-6 has always done great with the uniforms and the accessories, really trying to nail those. With the improvements in the sculpt, I definitely think they're going to continue to be a company to watch out for, and fingers crossed they continue that improvement. This also makes me tempted to try and pick up the first Contact Picard that they released. I don't know how I missed that figure, but I did, and now it's kind of expensive on the secondary market, and there honestly aren't many available, and that is another thing to watch out for with these. I feel like the market for Trek collectibles is not nearly as big as Star Wars or the MCU, so I don't know that we'll ever get these crews again, particularly the legacy crews like Voyager, DS9, and TNG. I'm sure the new Trek shows have their own popularity, but for those older shows, this might be the only chance to pick these characters up in 6-scale format, which maybe makes me a little biased and more likely to give EXO-6 a pass. But I think with what I'm seeing here with Tuvok, I would recommend him if you like Voyager and want a Tuvok in your collection. I don't think these are the types of figures that you would just pick up on a whim. You definitely have to be a fan of the source material, and if you are, I think you'll be happy with him. And I would recommend keeping an eye out, because I think if you miss out, there's a chance you'll have to pay much more on eBay for these. Now, looking forward, I believe Cisco is one of the next releases, and they are teasing Kirk and Spock from the original motion picture. So it'll be great to see what's next for us Trek fans. So that wraps up our quick look at Tuvok. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this figure and whether or not you think this marks an improvement and a step in the right direction for EXO-6. I think if you're not a fan of the source material, these can come across a little on the boring side. They don't have the crazy accessories some of the other figures do or the flashy superhero costumes, but I think they're still very solid releases. Finally, as always, thank you for spending a little time watching this, and if you are enjoying the content and are feeling so inclined, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll touch base on the next video.